Welcome back. Next up, we're going to switch gears a little bit and start talking about Midjourney, which has nothing to do with ChatGPT. It is a model that generates images. We give it text prompts and it generates pretty incredible images. It's honestly magical. In the same way ChatGPT feels magical at times when it gives you, very useful outputs or answers questions and it feels like the future. Midjourney feels like the future in the world of art or images. It is a really fun tool to use. So the point of it is that it generates images from text prompts. And there's a couple things you have to know. First of all, unlike ChatGPT, Midjourney requires some very specific prompting techniques where there are actual parameters and specific names of things you have to use when you're prompting it. ChatGPT is this massive open-ended thing. You can ask it whatever you want. When you're working with Midjourney, there are specific parameters that the model is expecting. So there's some more technical details that you need to know in order to write good prompts. But if you can write good prompts, you can do things like, here's the Midjourney homepage, by the way. If you go to their showcase section, you can generate images like the ones you see here, ranging from photorealistic imagery to hyper stylized, illustrations and watercolors and oil paintings and 3D renderings of pretty much anything you can think of. And there's a huge range of styles, right? We have like 3D little renders here of animated characters. We have, I don't know if this is an oil painting or neo-expressionism painting. But then we have things that look like photos, things that are very stylized. And these are just examples on the showcase page, line drawings. And if you hover over each one, you can see the prompt that was used to generate it. Let's look at this one here. This says a cute lion, emoji pack, expression sheet, multiple poses and expression, studio light, high detail. Let's take a look at something totally different. How about this one here? Coloring page, cute kitten with glasses on top of a book, abstract style, thick lines, low detail, lines only, no shading. And then finally, how about this here? An image of a steak dinner image. Food photos, steak photo stock, a huge cut of delicious steak on a wooden board. The prompts actually get cut short in the showcase. There's probably more to this prompt and there's specific parameters that are used that we can't see. But the point of this video is just to showcase some of the really cool things you can do with Midjourney, right? A huge variety of creative applications. In fact, I'm going to use it to make the image for this course and a lot of the imagery in this course. And it's very popular for creating marketing content, creating social media content, but also generating art. The next thing you have to know about Midjourney is that the only way to communicate with it, the only way to get images generated is through the Midjourney Discord bot, which we'll set up and talk about very soon. If you're not familiar with Discord, it's a chat application. It's free. And unfortunately, Midjourney itself is not free. That's a separate topic in just a moment. But Discord is. And as of now, there is no web-based interface to work with Midjourney. With ChatGPT, we just go on to chat.openai.com and we talk to the model. That is not the case with Midjourney. There's a few more hurdles you have to jump through in order to work with the model, but it's definitely worth it, especially once you learn the different parameters, the correct ways of prompting the model. You can get some really amazing output, as we just saw. The one catch, as I've already mentioned, is that it's not free, and there is no free tier anymore. There used to be a free tier, just like we have, ChatGPT Plus and then regular free ChatGPT if you don't pay. There no longer is a free tier at all for Midjourney. You have to pay to use it. And I believe there's two reasons why there is no longer a free tier. One is abuse. Midjourney and these image generating models have a high potential to be misused. And people were getting free trials and doing all sorts of absurd things, creating harmful content. That's all that I'll say about it. There's lots of examples and posts you can find online. And then the other reason is that Midjourney is extremely popular. And as we'll talk about, it requires GPU resources and cloud computing resources every time we generate an image. So it's expensive. All that matters for us is that there is no free option anymore. So if you don't have a credit card, if you don't have the ability to sign up to use Midjourney, which right now starts at $10 a month for the basic plan, if you don't have the resources or the desire to pay $10 a month, unfortunately, you can't use Midjourney. However, in the next couple of videos, I'm going to show you some alternatives that aren't quite as good in my opinion, but they are free, or they at least have a free tier. So soon we'll get started with Midjourney. Next, we're going to talk about DALL-E and Stable Diffusion. The first of the Midjourney alternatives that we'll look at is DALL-E 2, which is a model put out by OpenAI. It's not entirely free, but there's a free tier. You get access to a certain number. It used to be about 25 images for free that you can generate, and then you have to pay to buy credits. But it is free to some extent. DALL-E 2 is put out by OpenAI. So if you have an OpenAI account, you don't need to do anything else fancy to get access to it. This is the marketing page, openai.com/DALL-E2. But the actual interface where we interact with the model and create images is located, if you click try DALL-E 2, it's located at labs.openai.com. So what you'll see here, and a lot of you have probably played around with DALL-E, it got very popular pretty early on before tools like Midjourney really took off. So it was all over social media, lots of TikToks about DALL-E. It is a model that takes text prompts and spits out images. It just doesn't perform as well as Midjourney. Nowhere close, to be honest. So here are some example prompts that we can play with, some demonstrations, and a lot of them are pretty good. But if I just try and come up with my own prompt, or even just click the surprise me button, abstract pencil and watercolor art of a lonely robot, expressive oil painting of a basketball player, a fortune-telling Shiba Inu, reading your fate in a giant hamburger digital art. Let's try that one. It takes a bit. It generates me these 4 images, which are impressive, but if we compare that to the type of output we can get from something like Midjourney, it doesn't quite stack up. Another thing to know about DALL-E is that there is an API. So if you're a developer, you can programmatically generate images using DALL-E, which Midjourney does not currently support. But let's just take one of these Midjourney showcase images, like this one right here, this sort of photorealistic, I don't know exactly what it is, an evil female angel. Let's just copy this exact prompt and try running this over here with DALL-E. Now, some of this language is tuned specifically to work with Midjourney. Now, it's going to complain that it doesn't follow the content policy, probably because it says flirty core. Let's just get rid of flirty core. And that should follow the policy, hopefully. Interesting that flirty core is disallowed on DALL-E 2. I mean, this is the type of output we get. Nowhere near as good. Now that's kind of an unfair comparison because, as I said, this prompt was probably tuned specifically by the person who wrote it to work with Midjourney, not to work with DALL-E. But honestly, this is somewhat indicative of the type of output I tend to get from DALL-E. So I don't mean to just sit here and say terrible things about it. It's still very impressive. It just doesn't tend to work as well. It is not as polished. The images we get are far less detailed, and we have way less control over the images. We really don't have many parameters we can play with DALL-E. It's a very simplified version of what we can do with Midjourney. But it does support a free tier where you can make some images without having to pay. Other than that, if you are willing to pay, I would definitely recommend using Midjourney, which is why we'll be focusing on Midjourney. In the next video, we'll take a look at one more free image model before we dive into Midjourney. Next, we'll look at a second model that generates images from text, and it also is free to use, or at least has a free tier. And beyond that, it's actually open source. The name of this model is called Stable Diffusion. The team behind it, the company, is called Stability.ai. And the key difference here between Stable Diffusion and Midjourney is that Stable Diffusion is completely open source, meaning that you could run the model on your own hardware if you had the necessary hardware. It's not made to run on, an everyday laptop, but it's completely open source. You can run it yourself. You can tweak things. Midjourney is completely closed off. You can interact with Midjourney just like we can interact with ChatGPT. We can write crazy prompts and get, hopefully, the results we want, but we don't have access to the actual underlying model. So with that said, in general, I've found that Midjourney gives better results out of the box. Stable Diffusion is still very powerful. It's a big step up from DALL-E, from DALL-E 2 that we just saw in the previous video. And you don't have to download it and run it yourself locally, which is not that easy to do, as I've mentioned. There is a web-based client called Dream Studio. If you click on this, we see some nice example images, and a lot of them are pretty good. We get some decent output. just from this Dream Studio interface. So I'm just going to click Dream over here, where I have a prompt that was written for me. You can just write some or shuffle the prompt if you want. Powerful sorceress, flowing robes and mystical staff, standing in dark and ominous forest, mysterious, detailed, high detail, fantasy, portrait. So I logged in, and I'm actually a paying customer. You can see I've generated tons of images over the recent months, but you don't have to pay money. You will get a certain number of credits for free. Now let me try and zoom this in so we can generate this prompt. So this time it's slightly different. A wise wizard with a long beard, mysterious tome. All right, let's generate that. By default, we get 4 images. Wait for this to finish. And here we are. We got 4 different images of wise wizards with long beards. And then we can do a whole bunch of things. We can generate variations off of a specific one of these images. We can tweak a couple of settings around the aspect ratio or more advanced settings here, where I can change the number of generation steps. There's a bunch of things we can do. And this works far better than DALL-E 2 in my experience, but I find it still easier to get better results quicker out of Midjourney. But remember, there's a big distinction. Midjourney is completely closed off. It's made to give you really high quality images relatively quickly, whereas Stability AI's products, specifically Stable Diffusion and Dream Studio, are more customizable. They're more developer friendly. They're open source. You can run them locally, so you can really customize them a lot more. There's also, if you run the models yourself locally, you won't run up against any sort of content restrictions. You can do whatever you want to whatever purposes, positive or negative, nefarious or not. And Midjourney has all sorts of guardrails that you definitely can't do the same sort of content generation that you can achieve using Stable Diffusion. Not that that's how I recommend you use the models, but that is a key distinction. And of course, if you just need something quickly and you don't want to sign up and pay anything at all, you just want to play around with some of these models, Stable Diffusion and specifically the Dream Studio are a great way to get a limited number of images for free. With Midjourney, we don't have a choice. You have to pay to use Midjourney as it stands right now. But I believe it's worth it for the everyday user. If you're a developer, if you're someone who's going to really dive into the weeds, you can go a long way using Stable Diffusion and not having to pay a cent if you run it locally. But for most people out of the box, Midjourney will work better. All right, so let's go ahead and get set up with Midjourney. Remember, this is only available currently to paid subscribers. So unfortunately, if you don't have a credit card, unless they decide to re-enable free trials, you are out of luck, which sucks. Let's just be clear about that, especially just when you want to try things out. But I do believe it is worth the money, at least to try on the lowest tier, $10 for 1 month. Cancel it if you want to, if you're not impressed or you don't have a use for it, or try using Stable Diffusion. So to sign up, remember this is done through Discord. So if you go to the Midjourney website, you can click Join the Beta, and it will take you to a Discord link to join the community. Now, I've already joined the community. I have a Discord account set up. If you don't have a Discord, it will ask you to sign up. Discord itself is free. Joining the Midjourney server is free as well. This is what it looks like. This is the Midjourney server. It has like 17 or 18 million people who have joined. There's between 1 and 2 million people active at any given point in time. It's a very, very active server. And I'll just give you a quick overview of some of the stuff you'll see in here. There's an announcements channel. This is all just announcements coming from Midjourney, surveys and notes about office hours. There's a status channel that talks about any outages with the Midjourney bot. There are channels for technical support. There's channels for showcasing things people have generated. And then there are the newbie channels. So you will certainly see, or almost certainly see, different numbers here. Newbies 21, 22, it might be 99, but it doesn't really matter. If you pick any of these newbies channels, this is a place for newcomers to play around with Midjourney. And what you'll see is a bunch of images scrolling by. Let's go down to the bottom as people play around and generate new images. So it's kind of hectic and chaotic, and we'll see a way around this where we can just directly message the Midjourney bot. But the problem we have right now is that we're not actually set up. We're not subscribing. And so if I try and generate an image, it will complain to me and tell me you need to sign up. The easiest way to sign up is to run the /subscribe command. So /subscribe inside the Midjourney Discord on any channel. If you run this, it will generate you a link to open your particular subscription page. So this is private, as it says, only you can see this. So it doesn't really matter if I'm doing this in a public channel. And I've already subscribed, but once you click this link, it takes you to the Manage Subscription page where you can set up your subscription. Currently, there are 3 tiers. There's the basic tier, the standard, and the pro. I've just been using the basic plan and it works fine, but there are obviously distinctions, mostly in terms of how many fast generations you get or how many hours of fast generations you get. That's something we'll talk about in a separate video, the distinction between fast and relaxed. Also on the free tier, you're limited to around 200 image generations. So I haven't hit that limit and I've been using it for a couple of months now and haven't had any trouble, but it's kind of a substantial increase from $10 to $30 a month. It's also substantially cheaper to pay yearly, right, to $8 a month instead of $10 a month if you pay for the entire year. But that's kind of a big commitment if you're not sure. So we'll talk about the distinctions really around fast and relaxed generations. Otherwise, things are pretty similar. If you pay for the pro plan, there's 12 concurrent fast jobs compared to 3 concurrent fast jobs, but that's mostly it as far as the distinctions between the tiers. So I would just start with the $10 basic plan. So you'll set up your information, right? Credit card, billing stuff, all of that, and you should be good to go. At which point you can head back to Discord and we can get started generating our very first images. All right, so now that we have our Midjourney account set up, we have subscribed, we now can start generating images. So the way that we do this is the only option to interact with Midjourney is via Discord through a chat-based interface. There's no web app at the moment. There's no mobile app. They're working on it. But for now, it's all done via Discord. So I would recommend starting with one of the newbies channels, which is the whole point of these newbies channels is that it's a place for you to play around as a newbie and try and get a feel for how Midjourney works. Although in the next video, I'll show you an alternative. We can actually directly chat with the Midjourney bot. Now, the way that we generate images is by using the /imagine command. And /imagine then needs to be followed by a prompt. So whatever you want can go in here. Imagine, and then let's do, I have no idea. How about a turtle with grass and moss on its back? And then you hit enter. This will enter the queue, and you'll see it's waiting to start. It can take somewhere between 10 to 60 seconds to generate the images. And shortly, we should see something start to appear. And it's not going to look great at the beginning, right? We see sort of blurry looking images, but it will adjust as it adds steps to the generation here. It will refine the images. And eventually, we wait, and we wait some more. And things are getting a little bit better, right? As you can see, the quality increases. Other people are generating things, so there's a whole bunch of stuff scrolling by, but here we are. Here's our final generations. I'll click on them and we can see we get 4 images. Each image is a square. Now, these are decent, right? They look good. Some of them, all of them include a turtle on moss, and that's not exactly what I wanted, even if there is some moss on the back or the shell of the turtle. And this is a problem that you'll run into all the time with pretty much any image generating model. They don't understand English all that well. They understand individual keywords, but not necessarily the relationship between the words. Things like moss on the back of the turtle. We'll learn more about the best practices when it comes to prompting Midjourney. There are some really important tools and some, I won't call them hacks, but tricks that you can use. Either way, we got our first 4 images. We always will get 4 by default, and they're always going to be square by default. Well, at least for now. Maybe that will change in the future. We can change the aspect ratio. We can tweak all sorts of parameters. But for now, that's our first example. Let's try one more. So we run /imagine. And then after that, we include our prompt. And let me just show this one more time. When I run /imagine and I hit space or click on this for a required option, it's including this. I'll just show one more time. I'll hit space here. It's including this prompt little text box for me. It's just a place for me to write the prompt. So I'm not writing the word prompt myself. It just put that there. So let's try one more. Maybe we'll steal one from the showcase and see what we get. So let's find a prompt on the community showcase, something that is short, because a lot of these get cut off because they're long prompts. Why don't we try just taking some of this? So this one is holographic art, fluid forms of a cosmic entity in the style of James Nares, intense interplay of light and shadows. And there's more to the prompt, but I couldn't copy it all. So we'll just start with that. Now we've entered the queue again, and it looks like we've already been passed by. Here it is. It's waiting to start. And eventually we'll see something. Okay, now it's started. And it's the same process as before, where it's going to start blurry and pretty unrefined, and then eventually get better and better until it's finished. And we have a rough approximation of how complete the generation is, 62% currently. Okay, so here we are. This is what we got. Quite a bit different than what was in the original showcase prompt that I copied. I imagine there was more to this prompt, guiding it to create a person's face, which we didn't really do. But that's just our first example. We haven't learned a thing about writing good prompts yet. We're just writing any prompts. To summarize, we use the /imagine command to generate images. We provide a prompt, it takes some time, things scroll by, it can be a little frustrating. So in the next video, we'll take a look at how we can directly work with the Midjourney bot. As we saw in the previous video, there's a lot of action on these newbie channels. Things scroll by super fast. It's easy to lose your generations and not know what's happening, or just have to scroll a bunch to find something you previously generated. It can be overwhelming. So what I prefer to do is to work directly with the Midjourney bot. So you should see over here a list of not all the users, there's like millions of users logged in right now, but the mods, and most importantly, the Midjourney bot right here. If you don't see this list, you can show and hide the member list right here. I'm going to click on Midjourney bot. And once you click, just a regular click, we can see that it gives me a dialog to message him here. I shouldn't say him, message it. Or you can right click and click on message, and it will take me to my direct messages on Discord. And now you can see my short little history with Midjourney bot on this particular Discord account. So just before recording this video, I generated 2 images, and this is done directly with the bot. So there's nobody else's stuff in here. This doesn't mean it's private, by the way. The images I generate are still publicly available on the showcase. That is something we'll cover in a separate video, but it does mean that I can see all of my work in one place. If you have trouble enabling the direct messaging, if you get some sort of error or you don't see the option to direct message the Midjourney bot, there's instructions on the Midjourney documentation that I'll link to that shows you how to enable direct messaging with the bot. It's just a simple Discord setting. So now I can run the imagine command in here. How about hand-drawn, close-up portrait, astronaut with green eyes in, I don't know. Let's just start with that. So hand-drawn close-up portrait of an astronaut with green eyes. We have the same process where we wait. Eventually, we'll see something, but we don't have to deal with 100 or thousands of people's other images scrolling by. Okay, so here we are. We get our first little taste of what's to come, and then it gets refined, 15%, 31%. Keeps going until it finishes. Sometimes this can take a lot longer. Sometimes this can move pretty quickly. And 93%. And finally, does it finish? Not quite. There we go. Okay, so now I can click and I can see the images here. Pretty good results for a very simple prompt. 4 different results, right? And this is something we're going to discuss more, what these buttons do down here, how we can isolate a particular image and get variations on one of the images. But this video is just about direct messaging the Midjourney bot. It's what I'll be using in this course. It's just way easier. You can see what I'm doing, although it is fun to explore what other people are doing in the Midjourney server. Specifically, if you go further down to some of the daily themes, for example, where there's people working on the daily theme is arrow and or ace, and people are generating, really cool things like these ace playing cards, just as an example. And there's competitions that you can find. So it's definitely worth playing around and looking at the server itself. But when it comes time to actually generate images, I much prefer to work with my direct message to the Midjourney bot itself. The next thing we have to talk about is the fact that all of the images that we generate by default are publicly available. They all will, in some way, they can show up on the showcase. There's so many images I have yet to see my own images show up on the showcase, but you can see, here's a playing card one. Somebody's probably playing with that ace challenge that I just showed you, the daily theme. And as you refresh, new images eventually show up here. So this could include all of the images that I generate. Everything that we do is publicly available, including any images that I generate in private messages. Just because I'm privately messaging the Midjourney bot, that doesn't mean that my images that I actually generate are private. Nobody can see them on the Discord itself, on the actual server here. They're not scrolling by like all these other images, but they are still publicly available on the showcase. So there is an option to use stealth mode. However, it's only available to Pro plan subscribers, which is the $60 a month tier. So I don't have access to it with $10 a month. $30 a month for the basic or for the standard plan doesn't give you access to stealth mode either. You have to pay for the Pro plan. So you can try using the command /stealth, which will take us to stealth mode, but in my case, it will just tell me you don't have access to stealth. Your current membership plan doesn't include private mode. Upgrade your plan to gain access to private mode. If you do have private mode, if you enable it using /stealth, the images that you generate in stealth mode using Imagine will not be available publicly. They still will show up though if you are doing them publicly in the server, in a public room or a public server, rather than doing it in the direct message to the bot. So that's all there is really to say about stealth mode. You can also leave stealth mode by typing /public, but this won't apply to most of you, including myself, because I don't pay for stealth generation with the $60 tier. So the point here more so is that anything you do is publicly available, and just keep that in mind. And it kind of ties into the next topic we'll cover, which are the content guidelines. This will be a super quick video. I just want to run through the community guidelines put out by Midjourney, which is a pretty important part of working with Midjourney. It is a great image generating model. However, you cannot use it to generate anything that you might want or anything you can imagine, which hopefully you're not trying to generate gore and abusive content or shocking and disturbing content. But there still are probably some legitimate uses that are shocking and disturbing that Midjourney is not going to allow you to do. So it is an open by default community, as we've already discussed. To keep the platform accessible and welcoming to the broadest number of users, content must be PG-13. So they have rules set up so that you can't generate things with adult content and gore, anything visually shocking with disturbing content. Certain prompts will just be completely blocked, although there are ways you can sometimes get around it, but your images are public, remember, so it is something you want to be cautious with. If you really need to generate gory, creepy, abusive content, which I hope you don't, but if you need something with less rules, there's always models like Stable Diffusion, which you can run locally on your own machine. As we've already discussed, it's one of the big advantages of Stable Diffusion if you do have the proper hardware to run it locally. Anyway, there's more details about what's considered gore. They don't want detached body parts, cannibalism, blood, violence, deformed bodies, severed limbs, pestilence. They don't want nudity, sexual organs, naked breasts, people in showers or on toilets. And there's a whole bunch of other things, obviously, around racism, homophobia, other disturbing content. And one thing that is important to note that this also applies to anything involving celebrities or public figures. If you're trying to generate anything inflammatory or offensive, that's against the community guidelines. Now, these standards do evolve, and if you go back and read some blog posts about the early days of Midjourney, there was some definite misuse of Midjourney early on. So these standards are pretty strictly enforced. So keep that in mind. If you're trying to generate nude fan art of celebrities, you're not going to want to use Midjourney for that. You'll want to use a different model. Same thing with violent content and anything inflammatory. So hopefully that goes without saying, but if you have questions, you can find the community guidelines on the Midjourney documentation under Getting Started, Community Guidelines.